What's up, War Report family? We are back with another great edition of the Auburn Express podcast powered by the War Report. You guys know the deal. It's Tuesday. We're recording on a Monday, but it's Tuesday, and we are talking power rankings after one of the craziest weekends of college football in the history of college football. Chris, whoo, man, you have been traveling. You've been on the move. And you've gotten kind of lucky with some of these games. You were rocking Archie in Tennessee this weekend. Before we jump into your rankings, tell us about what that environment was like.
Yeah, Mike, first things first, appreciate you having me on. It's always a pleasure doing this every week. And
Of course.
to you and the War Report family, I ask, are you having fun yet? Because this college football season has been topsy-turvy. Yeah, it's funny, Mike. I was telling you off air that, Fayetteville was incredible. Arkansas football treated us really well. Got a tour around the indoor facility, got to go on the field on Friday and, got to check out DWR. And little did I know, Mike, that I'd be back on the field 24 hours later rushing it because Arkansas beat a top 5 Tennessee team.
Wow.
Being out at the tailgate, it's funny. We were joking, I'm really happy for the Hog fans because, Mike, they're a fan base that's been beaten, battered, and bruised. They've suffered so many heartbreaking losses, one score, and you could feel that at the tailgate right there. We're talking about the game. They're like, oh, we know how it's going to go. It's going to come down to the wire. Arkansas is going to break our hearts. And I was just simply saying, I'd just like to see a close game in the fourth quarter. I thought Arkansas could do it, but, they've just been one of the most volatile teams in the SEC. And sure enough, Taylor Green played an incredible game. Their defense, Travis Williams you guys know Travis Williams very well. He is a star in the making. What he's gotten out of the defense for Arkansas, and to pull the upset, man, that was a win that the Hogs fan base desperately needed and had a blast, man. We're on a bit of a heater, like you said, catching some of these big time ball games. So headed to Baton Rouge this weekend for LSU Ole Miss. I got a good feeling that one's going to deliver as well.
I'm really good friends with Travis's wife as well too. We all went to college together, and they just had a child. So she's been staying home. The last couple of weeks taking care of the brand new member to the Williams household. But I can tell you, I don't know if there's a better, kinder, more deserving set of coaches than Travis Williams and Sam Pittman. I was so happy for the two of them, two really, really good people. I saw a great shot of them embracing after the win against Tennessee. Just a crazy week of college football. But let's jump right in here and talk about the rankings because, whoo, boy, was there a lot of upsets on Saturday. Let's start with last week, as we always do. Here are the rankings from last week. Bama at 1 after the big win against Georgia. Texas at 2, Tennessee at 3, Georgia at 4 after losing to Alabama, coming back, holding the lead for 13 seconds, and then relenting immediately to Milroe and Ryan Williams. Missouri at 5, frauds, Chris. LSU at 6, Ole Miss at 7, coming off the loss to Kentucky. A&M at 8. I picked them in our pick'em this week.
I did as well. I took them over Mizzou. Yes,
I liked them. I thought the overtime win against Vanderbilt exposed them a little bit. South Carolina at 9. Obviously, they had a big win versus Kentucky here. Oklahoma at 11. Arkansas at 12. So they probably moved a little bit. And Billy Napier pulls out the win versus UCF. Just when you think he's dead in the water, this guy just keeps on kicking. Vanderbilt at 14, Auburn at 15, right where they belong, and Mississippi State at the bottom of the conference. Now moving to week 7. This is this week's rankings. Holy shit. Okay, so lot to unpack here, but Chris, I'm beefing with you, bro. I'm beefing. You moved Bama from 1 to 3 after losing to Vanderbilt. Explain yourself here.
Yeah, Mike. So,
explain this.
For sure. Listen, a lot of the rankings, I still look at it as who would win a game on a neutral field. Listen, I know what happened in Nashville. I totally get it. The legend of Diego Pavia got Kalen DeBoer. And nobody has gone more so from the penthouse to the doghouse in a week's time. We are 6 weeks through the season, Mike, and Alabama has the best win and the worst loss in this season already. Past Bama, like, do I put LSU ahead of them? I don't know. I'm not ready to do that. Do I put Ole Miss ahead of them? I'm not ready to do that. The bottom line is this, Mike. Everybody's flawed. That's the problem. So I understand what I witnessed from Bama. But if Bama and Vandy, for example, played this weekend on a neutral field, Mike, I'm picking Bama again.
Oh, sure.
So like, here's the balancing act with these power rankings. When we have a weekend like we just did, you're going to move a team like Bama down. But if I move them down to 7 or 8 or 9, the power rankings kind of become a joke. Just like no shot to anybody. If I moved Vandy up to 3 or 2 or 1, I mean, we'd be having the same conversation. So, like, in that scenario, if Bama should go to 9 or 10, then I should have moved Vandy to 4 or 3.
I hear you. I hear the reasoning, but I'm going to push back a little bit because I think that the loss to Vandy maybe says more about Bama being not what we thought they were than it says about Vandy being some giant slayer. So I don't have a problem necessarily with not jumping Vandy way up, but
here's my issue. I watched Bama in person throttle Georgia for 30 minutes. Obviously play a really porous second half.
And then give up a huge lead.
Still win. Then the Vandy game happens. Listen, Mike, I'm as confused as you are. You know what I mean? Like, right. I'm not acting like I got all the answers here, but
that's fair.
Bama deserved to come down. Obviously, I wasn't ready to essentially say, Mike, they're a middle of the pack SEC team. I'm not. I think this Bama team, I think they can still win the national championship, Mike. Like, I think it's possible. It feels crazy to say a couple of days after they lost to Vanderbilt, but welcome to the world of the 12-team playoff where they ain't dead yet, you know? So
yeah. It's going to be interesting, I think, to see how this plays out.
Like, is Bama going to finish 7-5, Mike? Is that what we think? Are they going to finish 8?
No. But Kalen DeBoer inherited one of the most talented rosters any coach has ever inherited.
He inherited a Ferrari, no doubt.
Right,
yeah.
For sure. And
anybody comparing this to Nick Saban's La Monroe year 1 is just
that's way off.
It's
way off. Saban would have never let this happen. Jumping back into the rankings here. Again, Texas jumps to number 1, and I think rightfully so. Yeah. Georgia took care of business versus Auburn. No surprise there. Although,
Mike, to your point, I've got Alabama people who are mad at me saying, well, we beat number 2. And I'm like, you just lost to Vandy. What do you – I mean, so –
yeah, you're only as good as the last thing you did. Right, yeah, in these rankings. So right. I agree. Yeah, forget that for right now. If I'm trying to explain this to a reasonable Bama fan, what I'm seeing here is, yes, your ceiling maybe is we can beat Georgia, but if your floor is we could lose to Vandy, then
there's a few more losses on that schedule.
Yeah, there might be a couple more losses on this schedule, so this could potentially get worse, and 3 might be generous right now, so we'll see how that plays out. Look, Ole Miss bounced back. They had a really good bounce back versus South Carolina. South Carolina looks way outmatched in that game. You can lay an egg in this league. It can happen to anybody. But A&M was a team that I thought they had a good chance to win versus Missouri. Not only did they win, they kind of dominated, right? They dominated this game. So just reminding everybody, in week 6, you had them at 8, not a ton of room for movement, but you did move them up to 6. How do you feel about this A&M team and where they project moving forward?
Yeah, Mike, I mean, Texas A&M, I think you got to start with the stones of Mike Elko that it took to bench Marcel Reed and reinsert Connor Wigman in the game and start him in that ballgame. Because you think about it, they had been winning with Marcel Reed. So, if you bench him, you put Wigman in, and let's say he's shaky, there's going to be a lot of people questioning you about that move. Instead, Connor Wigman, he trusts his gut. He says, you know what? I know what I've seen in practice. I know what he's capable of. We're winning games with Marcel Reed, but we're not the best version of ourselves, respectfully, with Marcel Reed. And it works out beautifully. And I mean, to your point, Mike, they throttled Missouri. I picked A&M to win that football game. Did not think it would be a 31-point thrashing. And I mean, it felt like that game was over the second it started. I mean, they were able to do whatever they wanted. You could tell with Wigman, They've got a lot more balance to the offense. And, I mean, we know under Mike Elko defensively they're going to be salty, man. The Shamars up front, Nick Scorton was active, Torian York at linebacker. Dude, I loved what I saw from their receivers. Their receivers are so physical. Guys like Noah Thomas making
lots of talent still left on those rosters.
They've got talent all over the place. The only thing that's held me back on A&M, admittedly, Mike, was just, being burned by them so many years. I know that was Jimbo A&M, but I'm like, hey, let's just allow A&M to overachieve. Let's allow A&M to surprise us. I didn't want to be one of those people that's putting out these crazy expectations on them. I had them at 7-5 in the summer. That team looks a lot better than 7-5 to me. Listen. I know Mizzou. The word of the week for them is fraudulent.
They're frauds.
They're frauds. Mizzou's a fraudulent top 10 team. I don't think they're a bad football team, so I don't want to take things away from A&M. But to your point, I mean, Mizzou, probably the most fraudulent top 10 team, one of the most fraudulent we've ever seen. So.
I would not rule out Auburn going into Columbia in 2 weeks and getting a win. Yeah, I think
with the way Mizzou has looked, I mean, and the reason they fell so far down, I know you didn't ask this, Mike, the reason they fell so far down, this was kind of compounding their last 3 outings. It wasn't just the A&M game. It was squeaking by Boston College, just escaping death against Vandy. And then finally, it's like it was kind of like the dam was about to break for a few weeks, and finally it just let go, and A&M exposed all their weaknesses. So that was the reason Mizzou dropped so far.
I agree 100% with that. I think they may fall further before this is all said and done.
Very well could.
Let's, the rest of this, we kind of get, again, big win for Arkansas, but, where do you realistically move them? I mean, it was a great win versus Tennessee, but are they a better football team than Tennessee? I'm not sure they are. And so I agree, kind of Tennessee's still going to be on the playoff hunt. I don't think Arkansas is in any danger of making the playoff. Billy Napier logged a big win this week versus UCF. And every time they were talking about firing this dude, I don't know. It looks to me like he might be closer and closer to keeping his job as the weeks pass, especially with teams all around him faltering. So big win for him. Let's close out. As always, we got to close out talking about the Auburn Tigers. Auburn went to Athens. And to put some perspective for this on our listeners, Chris, in Athens since 2018, Auburn's defense has given up an average of 484 yards of offense to Georgia. Offensively, they have averaged only 249 yards of offense going into this game. On Saturday, they gave up only 381 yards of total offense, and they logged just a little over 330 yards of total offense versus Georgia's defense. So by the averages, they played Georgia better in Athens than they have in the last 6 years. But still, the end result left some things to be desired, and there were maybe some points left on the field. Now, Chris, probably the most concerning thing about this game for Auburn fans was the confusion between coach and quarterback. You had a 4th and 1 where it seems now, after we've gathered information from interviews and players, that the play was changed by the quarterback. Hugh Freeze said that's not what was called. I probably should have called a timeout. They ran the ball essentially to the loaded side of the defense. Peyton Thorne decided to keep it. The play was doomed the way it was audibled. But if it's a halfback dive left, the way Hugh Freeze is saying it was called, not only do you probably get the first down, but the way Jarquez Hunter was running the ball, he might have been one missed tackle away from housing it, the way they had that thing defended. Right now, Auburn is somewhat of a mess. I believe Hugh Freeze when he says it's close, but some of the problems that are occurring here, because remember, I mean, they were very close to going into the half 7-3. This defense they have not allowed 400 yards of offense to a Power 5 opponent yet this year. It's an incredible stat.
It's crazy, Mike. The numbers for Auburn, there's impressive numbers all over the place. I mean, I hear people every week talk about if you take away the turnovers, Auburn has like one of the best offenses in college football. And then you talk about the defense, and it's like, yet here we sit. I mean, like you said, it's a mess. The whole thing you're talking about with Peyton Thorne and the change at line, it's like, is he a freshman? I'm confused. Like, I thought you were a veteran quarterback. Like, how are these issues happening? I mean, Mike, from the stat line, I mean, I got to see a little bit of this game, obviously, but, Auburn, I think, listen, you didn't expect a win going in that game between the hedges, but Auburn showed you don't turn the football over and don't shoot yourself in the foot quite as much. I mean, hey, you made it a game with Georgia. Like, just don't turn it over moving forward. And I think Auburn's going to be fine. I mean,
no turnovers in that game versus Georgia.
No turnovers.
Maybe
that's a positive. Maybe you can build off of that. And, we were just talking about the power rankings, Mike. Admittedly, like, I look at, do I think Auburn could beat South Carolina on a neutral site? Like, yeah. A lot of it's just I don't trust Auburn to go play a clean game. Like, that really is. And I know they, again, just did against Georgia, but when it's a 50-50 ball game, like, let's go see if Auburn can go play a clean game. I think if they can, they have talent. Like, Peyton Thorne's going to be Peyton Thorne. Like, they kind of are what they are in some spots, but they've obviously got good players. I mean, they've got talented athletes. They're young guys. They're young. They've got some really bright young stars on that football team. And I think you saw that on Saturday that if they play clean football, like they can hang in there with a Georgia. I know the Dogs pulled away, but I mean, to your point, that was a close game for a lot of that game. So
yeah,
I just it's man, Mike, Peyton Thorne is what he is. He is what he is. It is a mess. You're right. I just apparently I don't know how true this is. You could maybe enlighten me, but I'm being told by our guy Dave Shoemate, who knows guys on the Auburn staff, that in pregame of that game, Hugh Freeze is meeting with his offensive staff like, guys, we should have gotten a quarterback out of the portal. It's like, bro, we're about to play a game. Like, and you're talking about this. Like, we know you should have. Everybody knows you should have.
Yeah.
Like, hindsight's 20/20, buddy. I don't know, man. It's just, it is a mess. That's the way to put it.
Yeah, and it's even more incredible that you didn't go get a quarterback, but you don't have a quarterback on the roster that you feel comfortable turning to.
Do you feel like, Mike, not to cut you off, but do you feel like, people are saying Hank Brown, or who's the other kid? Who's the third one?
Walker White.
Walker White. So people are, I heard somebody talking about this, saying that Walker White, is he the quarterback next year? And it's like, dude, if you're not good enough to beat out Peyton Thorne this year, are you really the quarterback of the future? Like, is that unfair to say? Like,
well, I mean, he's a true freshman, and
okay. All right.
Yeah, he's catching up. He's catching up to the game.
There's a lot more that goes into it, like knowing the offense playbook. I just,
sure. Yeah, like what true freshmen are? There are few that are going to come in and save you. Yeah, as a true freshman.
That's fair.
Yeah, so the plan for him always was give him a year to adjust, and he should be competing for the starting job going into 2025 with whoever is here.
Yeah.
But right now that looks like that's going to be Deuce Knight. But you're still faced with the prospect of starting another brand new transfer quarterback, a redshirt freshman, or a true freshman next year.
I mean, if you're Hugh Freeze, and what's going to be, like, no matter what happens, we kind of know at this point, next year is going to be pivotal for his Auburn career. Are you going to hand the keys to a true freshman? You're going to hang your hat on your tenure. You have to go get a guy.
Yeah, I think you need a bridge year.
You have to.
And you need a Cam Ward type, because they were looking at Cam Ward. The reports were the price tag was just way too high for what they wanted to spend in the portal. But now you may not be able to hold back. You might have to spare any expense to get a bridge year quarterback, but it's got to be a closer to a can't miss guy. You can't go to the portal. We talked about this on our show and go get another Peyton Thorne type quarterback. You got to go get a guy who everybody wants, and you have to outbid everybody for him to make sure that you get him if that's the direction that you're planning to go. He can't have 2 or 3 years left because it messes up the balance of your quarterback room. And we'll see who's available in that regard going into 2025. A lot of this is timing as well, too. So, look, is Deuce Knight going to sit for 2 years behind some guy? Well, he maybe not. So that's part of the job of being an SEC head coach in today's college football. And Hugh Freeze, I think he put himself behind the 8 ball in year 1 with how this thing was managed. So, if I hear anybody say that, well, they're not going to get a quarterback because they're more than a quarterback away.
Bro, Vandy went and got a quarterback, and they just beat number 1 Alabama. So I don't want to hear.
Yeah,
go get yourself a gamer and go win some damn ball.
Yeah, the more than a quarterback away.
Get out of here, man.
No, you may be more than a quarterback away from competing for championships, but you're just a quarterback away from being in contention.
Right.
Right.
In the meantime, you better be doing enough to give your fan base hope.
Yeah, right. And hold last year's recruiting class together, because
there's a lot of big time receivers at Auburn that want the football.
Well,
get somebody that'll get it to them.
Yeah, you have to have somebody who can get them the ball next year, and they've got to have faith in that system. Chris, I want to thank you for joining me today to talk a little bit about your power rankings. Before we get out of here, as always, tell people where they can find you.
Mike, it's always a pleasure, man. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I always look forward to chatting with you weekly, man. Yeah, we're at SEC Unfiltered, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you get your content, you can find us there. YouTube, podcast, and SECUnfiltered.com. And stay tuned again to find out where we're going to be next. I know we've already been to Auburn, but we're checking out some great SEC venues throughout the rest of the season. So fingers crossed we continue to get barn burners. It's been a lot of fun.
Guys, that's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express podcast, powered by the War Report. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report on every social media platform. TW Report on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, War Eagle.